Podcasts are you plus 10%. You shouldn't put on more than 10% of your personality. I'm turned on 10% more than I would be normally.
I'm turned on 11%. So
Okay.
watch out.
You're still having your hot girl summer.
It's now hot girl fall.
Oh, well.
Still single.
Welcome to Daddy Loves Sopranos. This is episode 4.
They say fourth time's the charm.
That's what they say. I'm Jason. That's Ray.
Hello.
And we're here to discuss episode 7 and episode 8 of The Sopranos. But before we do that...
We're trying the rainbow of non-alcoholic beers, and today we have another Collective Arts Hazy Pale Ale. This is our first short can.
We're mostly Tallboy boys.
Yeah.
TBBs.
Yeah.
You love when I do that, right? The acronym
it's
thing?
It's good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
All right, let's get into it.
We're so cool that we can crack a beer with one hand.
Next time we have to be able to do it with our teeth. Cheers. Lately, the NA beers have been lacking for me. I'm really missing beer because I love going to breweries in the fall.
Not to brag, but I went to a party last night, and I miss the, Miller High Life beer, in a kitchen, and you're just drinking Miller High Life.
Yeah,
because someone brought it, and you run out of your beer, so then you just take whatever.
Budweiser, Miller Lite, Molson light beers are so crushable, and I really miss that a lot.
My favorite when I lived in the States, Natty Light.
Ooh,
you get the 12-pack for $10.
Dang.
Good deal.
When I lived in the States, I would get a 6-pack of Sapporo for $6. And
to be young. Can you tell us a little bit about episode 7?
Yeah. AJ steals the wine from the church that leads him to get tested for ADD in 1999/2000 was a very big deal. As a result of his son getting into trouble, Tony starts reliving moments from his childhood, and we get a lot of flashback scenes. And so we learn a little bit more about what life was like for Tony growing up with a dad in the mob and with Uncle Junior when he was younger. And his mom is insane. There's a great moment between Tony and his mom where he goes, if you would have been born after these new wave feminists, you would have been the real gangster. And I think she is the puppeteer. She prevented his dad from going off and doing that legitimate business. It turns out she was so controlling of everyone. Janice Soprano exists in the world
and
somewhere.
Where is she?
She got out.
She got out.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if she is if Meadow's arc will reflect whatever goes on with Janice.
Yeah.
Because I think she's proof that the Soprano women have a little bit more agency than the Soprano men in terms of pursuing a life of crime versus other opportunities. Episode 7. I teach English. The English nerd in me loves the way you can analyze this as a text. I really like the parallels between Tony's life growing up when he saw his dad enter a life of crime, and it aligns with the age that AJ would have, figured out that Tony was going through that stuff. And Tony is clearly an advocate for psychotherapy, but as soon as it becomes his son getting analyzed, he becomes defensive, but reasonably so.
I have to say, episode 7 was great for me, but to be honest, my least favorite character was in episode 7, which was the weirdo psychiatrist that analyzed AJ. He was a weird dude.
I did not like him.
And I was like, you need to leave.
After Tony goes, what constitutes a fidget? He leaves, and Carmela goes, I happen to agree with him. I also don't think we should have to pay for this. Amazing.
How do you feel about Tony hiding all his shit in his mom's hat boxes?
Delightful montage. How did he know these were boxes that she doesn't use regularly?
Know.
What if that was the box where she keeps her favorite hat?
He put the machine gun in the towel box.
You use towels.
And then she's going to look at it and she'd be like, Tony. She'll just do her face.
Can you do her voice?
Oh, what's a line I should say? Please. Uncle Junior, therapy.
Mrs. Soprano in the house. Episode 8, Christopher shoots the pastry employee guy.
He's a struggling artist.
Yeah.
He's trying to write his screenplay.
The FBI indictment starts.
Also, FBI hats were very
with the stickers, the high-vis, FBI.
I didn't like that.
It was a lot. The mobsters have to do a little spring cleaning.
Also, episode at the retirement home.
His name was Jeff Dunham. But I feel now the way shows are made, you would never see, Hak Tua girl appear on The Bear. That would never happen.
That should happen.
It should happen. I mean, it's what the people want.
What we want.
Yeah.
I would pay money for Jeremy Allen White to say
Kills versus kills. Dry episodes.
Dry.
Very dry.
Not too violent.
No.
Actually, I don't think anyone got killed.
But gory. We do revisit a person who's been killed.
Yeah, a body.
And
then a dream. The dream dead guy. Chris digs up the guy that he dreams about.
what did you think? I have strong feelings of that scene specifically, the dream sequence.
The dream sequence? Okay. I thought it was silly. It was like it almost like was like musical theater-esque. Where you're like, okay, what's happening? And then Carmela showed up.
She's on her knees and she gets handed a sausage.
Yeah!
Hand in the freezer.
And I think that was the weirdest moment for her. And I don't know if I have any more thoughts than that other than just like, I think it was like he's going through his first kill. The guy pussy was like, oh, it's going to get worse.
He said it gets easier. The
more
more
you,
easier.
Oh,
the more
right,
people
right.
kill, the easier it is for you to sleep at night because it
Right.
all sort of, they wash over you.
I have to say that I watched these episodes while doing my laundry in the laundromat. This was like a weird moment in time for me to watch these episodes because all of a sudden there was like strippers on my screen and I was like, oh, I'm in public.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't have any strong feelings other than that. I thought it was interesting that Carmela showed up.
I actually really liked the dream sequence. I think it's all ADR. So meaning they like shot it and then it's all dubbed. Because there's paper and all this stuff blowing around, but you don't hear the sound.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anything I've ever seen where that visual effect happens. And I thought it was really interesting. I love that they're not afraid of like being super dorky on this show.
Yeah, it was another experience where you're like, oh, there's just going to be a musical montage. Oh, there's going to be like a dream sequence. And they're just like trying new things and seeing what's going to work. And
yeah.
Again, I think we have to think back, oh, this came out every week. Whereas like we see this in...
We're like binging it. It feels like it's a product of a time where there was a lot more room for experimentation. Let's talk about obsessions. An entire episode dedicated to your boy. What'd you think?
I have a new respect for him. I want to meet his family.
Okay.
I want to meet his mom. I want to see his childhood. Like, I want a flashback of Chris's childhood after seeing that episode.
It's a baby with eyebrows.
There's just something so caring about his girlfriend when she comes in and I'm like, she just wants to help him and fix him and like she knows there's problems and he's difficult. And I think it's so cute when his name is mentioned and he takes all of the newspaper. Like he's just like, I'm a star.
End of episode 8. End of episode 8 was amazing.
I'm
for
a
that.
mobster now. Like I'm in the New Jersey like rag.
No, we're gonna call it the New Jersey rag.
The New Jersey, and he gets them all. And he steals them all.
And my immediate thought was, what's he gonna do with them? And I honestly think like keep them. What do you think?
He's a hoarder. Look at his apartment. It's disgusting.
What did he had a line for it? He was like, live light, live free, or whatever it was. Anyway, because there's nothing on the walls. His apartment is terrifying. Well,
it was interesting. I forget his name. The guy that came in to visit Chris that one time,
Polly.
Polly came in and was like, Chris is a mess. Like, what? Let's go. Let's
isn't
get
like
out.
you, kid. Talk to me.
And then he was like, I want to be someone. And then Polly was like, I'm not anybody.
Yeah,
but I was like, I did my time and I'm living life and that's it. But Chris was like, I can't do that. Like, I can't live like he needs to be. And it was so interesting to see, like, Chris doesn't want to be Polly. Like, he doesn't want that to be his life. He wants to be Tony.
I know. The discussion of arcs and, like, what an arc is. The philosophical idea that one should live without the idea that one has an arc. There's something very zen.
Yeah, but I think there's two ways of life. I think Polly and Chris. It's like the people that are content and just being and just living and, like, things happen. Whereas Chris is never satisfied with anything.
Yeah.
And he will keep feeling unsatisfied and therefore he never will feel satisfied. And I feel like those are two different types of people and I think there's so many, like you can relate that to anything, like artists or any profession, really.
Is Tony more of a Polly or is Tony more of a Chris?
I think he's different because he kind of got thrown in.
Right.
He had a bit of an easier time getting to the top. And then because he's so ruthless as a person.
Yeah.
Like, I think it just fell into him and he's like, oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think Chris has ever been good at it because he's too emotional.
It's the irony. He clearly wants it so bad and that's what's preventing him from getting what he wants.
That's how I feel about my art.
The conversation of the Italian-American experience in the 2000s, in the new millennium. There's a couple times around a table where they discuss, you know, the experience of being an Italian-American, and if you asked us just a random stranger on the street to describe that kind of person, they would probably reference, like, Goodfellas. But I thought it was really interesting that the writers are having that conversation in the show. Why does it matter? We learned so much about the therapist's life.
Oh, yeah.
And like...
I think she might have been a young mom.
And her son, love that name. It's Jason.
It is Jason!
Sure is. You better believe I'm going to pull audio clips of that and use it during this podcast. It's like, stop it, Jason!
Her ex-husband's so much older than her. She must have been like 20. And he would have been like 30. And then her kid is like sophomore, second year in college. Tony's kids are in high school still. But like I would say the therapist and Tony are like the same age.
Yeah. Do you find it at all interesting that they're having this conversation about what does it mean to be Italian American?
I didn't think of it.
Okay.
Maybe it's this whole thing like it's important to see that, yeah, I think in the media Italian Americans are shown in a certain way, but then it's like the show itself is showing that, okay, yeah, they are mobsters, they have a history of violence in the country. But they're people too.
It's important to mention plot point wise. Tony's mother finds out that Tony is seeing a therapist, and then she tells Junior, and Junior is not happy about it.
Well, I think they're just thinking you're going to spew secrets.
He has talked about secrets.
Yeah.
He's talked about like all kinds of things.
The therapist is being very unprofessional. She's like loving it. I think because she has a broken home.
She had an out, but now she's too far in.
Well, I just don't understand. She just needed to give him a prescription. He would have been fine. And then she'd have been like, okay, you're fine. I don't want to hear any more of this. She's going to die. She might die. She might get nicked. She might be a kill.
What is her arc going to be?
What if she gets killed and then killed? You know what I mean?
I hope so. Props and costumes, lots of jewelry shots. I believe it's not the watch I thought it was on Tony's wrist. I believe it's a date just. There's lots of fun guns. I feel like there's a lot of props in this episode. Did anything stand out to you?
Two things. I think it's funny that when Tony's dad gets arrested in the carnival, the clown, then also just like a thing of fur coats. Like, yeah. I enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. And then it reminded me of the early 2000s when like some of my great-great-grandparents were still alive, and the magnifying glass was like a big thing. Yeah. And Tony's mom is using the magnifying glass to read. I don't think that exists anymore. Like
magnifying glasses? Oh, dude, you're not hanging out with enough detectives.
Okay. So magnifying glass was for the crossword. You'd like...
the obituary.
You refused to get reading glasses. You just had a magnifying glass.
Yeah, in your pocket.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, it was very cute. I think the clown wasn't real. I think the clown was supposed to represent that he thinks his father is a clown. Yeah.
Okay.
Costumes, once again, short sleeve tracksuit. Chris is into
really
it.
Good.
Shout out to the makeup department, the dead guy that they dig up.
Ooh.
Terrifying.
Ooh.
Look at his beard. He grew a beard. Look at his nails. Anyways, this is disgusting. He has these like lesions.
The FBI hats were really campy and I hated them so much. I was like, this is from a prop department. This isn't real. Again, I think in the 2000s, they still got away with like using props like that because no one knew what was going on. Like
people didn't know as much about production as they do now.
Okay, and then the other thing I really loved was... just a question. Do you think Tony and mobsters in general get invited to weddings because they give good gifts?
Oh, maybe. Christopher gave that computer, but then it turns out he stole it. So,
but you're not the one stealing it. You're the one being gifted it.
It's a victimless crime.
It's like money laundering in casinos.
This is a question to ask my dad. I think he's going to have a stance.
Okay.
All
right.
So we'll ask him that. Tony's dad's outfit when Tony sees him beat up the first guy. He's wearing a tank top, open shirt, chain, brown pants, white socks, and loafers. Like a look I definitely rock as often as I can. And I was just like, that's the person I'm trying to dress like, is Tony's dad.
So you don't believe in women's rights, is what you're saying.
How are those related?
Because in the 50s, men and women.
Oh.
Like, you're like, oh, I wish, it's like the whole, it's like, was I born the wrong era? Because I like, my fashion sense is like from that era. But then you're like, oh, I would not have been a real person.
That's fair. Not based on morals, ethics. Just vibes.
Yeah.
And if I'm canceled, then so be it. It was fun while it lasted.
The family dinner, the meatballs that were getting passed around were like massive. They were huge. And I was like, Carmela, you outdid yourself.
She crushed it. I've only had meatballs like that once before, and it's at this Italian spot right by me, like on the corner.
Yeah.
And we should go and eat Italian food for this podcast somehow.
What a great idea. We
should do that. We'll invite the viewers to join us.
I thought it was sweet how when AJ gets in trouble and he's like, it's not fair. And Tony's like, It's not.
Yeah, it's not. AJ knows how to play Nintendo 64. The way he holds the controller, it's clear that kid actually knows how to play Nintendo 64. It's one of pet peeves in shows when they show people playing video games that the actors don't know how to use the controllers. Tony has done that in this show. Tony has grabbed the controller. They're playing Mario Kart, and he grabs the controller wrong. He's not steering at all. Like, it just... And it's the wrong noises. It's like Wario, but neither playing is Wario. So I just wanted to say, I appreciate that they figured it out for this episode. It's authentic to my experience. No. There were no kills, no sex, no actual murder. One stripper shot.
Yeah.
One, it's very brief. I would say it adds almost nothing to the show. Mm-hmm. It feels like they did it just to have boobs on the show. My question to you, real or fake?
It's the early 2000s.
Okay.
I was at the laundromat.
Okay.
And I was like, this is uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, it's not like I analyzed them with I just used a magnifying glass.
Yeah. I'm going to say real.
I'm a strong fake. I'm trying to develop my skills in identifying.
Okay. The strippers, I think, are going to be an important part of in figuring out the Sopranos, on a different level.
One of our favorite segments, What Would Tony Do?
What would Tony do?
And I think we should call my dad.
Hi, Morris.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Do you think Tony and mobsters in general get invited to a lot of weddings because the bride and groom know that they'll give good gifts?
I think it's probably not just that, but it's more of a respect thing or a fear thing.
Let's say you're the groom and you invite these mobsters to your wedding and they give you a new computer and it turns out that computer is stolen. Are you, as the groom, liable for having stolen merchandise?
I don't think you're going to get arrested for having stolen merchandise because, you just accepted a gift. But having said that, they can probably seize the gift. My guess is these guys, when they go to weddings, just give cash because they don't have checking accounts.
The indictment on the mobsters, Tony hides everything in his mom's retirement home. And I'm curious if you think that's a good strategy.
They use the retirement home quite often. You'll see it as a place where they can hide things, they can have meetings, they can conduct business without necessarily attracting the attention of the FBI or the police. So I think it's a very good idea, yeah.
Isn't it obvious, though, because it's Tony's mom?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think that that's necessarily something that they thought about. I mean, she's just an old lady, so.
In episode 8, it's very Chris featured. We find out he's a struggling artist. And do you think Chris graduated high school?
Clearly he didn't, because if you ever looked at the way he's typing on his computer, there's a lot of typos. I have a funny feeling he didn't graduate 8th grade. He's not the brightest guy in the world. I also found these two episodes, especially the Chris one, a little weak. I didn't particularly enjoy the 8th one. Just, the whole idea of Chris and he's writing a script. I just didn't enjoy the episode. I don't know why. Just
confirming, all of these facts that you're pulling, you did not rewatch these episodes recently, right?
No. I told you I've watched the show about 500 times, so.
We both assumed overall the show isn't necessarily remembered for these kind of creative swings that the show seems to take on a regular basis. So I'm surprised that, I guess maybe that's wrong because you seem to remember them.
I remember them, but I remember not enjoying these shows. I remember telling you about the 5th season where it starts to get weak. There's a lot of episodes in that one that's very creative, but I just don't like them.
Okay.
You'll see that they're not the best part of, I really didn't like 7 either, which seemed to, I think, focus on AJ and his problems. I didn't like it. My favorite scene in those 2 episodes, I think it's the one where Chris goes into the bakery. I really think it's funny when he shoots the guy in the foot. And the guy goes, "Oh, you fucking shot my toe." And he goes, "Stuff happens."
What you're trying to say is that you like violent episodes over the art.
There's no question. Yeah. I'll pick violence over art any day of the week.
Okay.
The other thing, not a spoiler alert, but I feel I have to tell you. So the guy in the pastry shop, his name is Gino, the big fat guy. Did you notice him?
Yes.
He's going to play a different character in seasons 4 or 5, but he really ends up being a major character in this show.
I think my final question is about the therapist and her family.
Also, something I didn't like. I don't like the fact that, first of all, I find the son annoying.
Do you remember his name?
Jason. I really found him to be annoying. I found that it bothered me that she broke her doctor-patient
confidentiality
by telling everybody that she's treating this guy. And her husband, I think, is also like a real big jerk. And it's the whole, like, you know, they're divorced, but everybody's having Sunday dinner together. I don't know. It just bothered me.
That scene where you see them all at the Sunday dinner together, they're talking about the Italian-American experience. What's the point of having that conversation? Like, are they trying to comment on society?
Well, because I think that if you have been around Italian people, and I have in my practice, I work with Italians, I think that it bothers them quite a bit that this is the stereotype that people immediately think that if you're Italian, you're mobbed up. And I think that was, you know, they were trying to show the typical Italian family, very educated, very hardworking, and it bothers them. It just bothers them that people think of the mob or equate the mob with Italians, which is, you know, there's Jewish mobs, there's Asian mobs, but the Italians have really sort of, and maybe it's, you know, the movies, there's The Godfather, there's Goodfellas, everybody sort of thinks that the Italian community is all mobbed up, and I think it bothers them. I do think it bothers them.
Makes sense. What would Tony do?
If Tony found out he would have to wear glasses the rest of his life to drive or see or anything like that, what would he do?
Yeah, like, Dad, hypothetically, if a person discovered that they needed glasses to drive at night, do you think that Tony would wear them? Your thoughts on this?
Well, I would say probably not. I like to think of myself as a little bit like Tony, and I'm very vain. So I think that he would try not to wear the glasses, and he might try to have a surgical intervention to repair his eyes so that he wouldn't have to wear glasses, much like I did with my cataracts. I really should wear glasses but don't feel like it. But I guess one day when I drive at night and I hit a deer, maybe I'll...
Great.
Over the weekend, I watched something on YouTube that sort of talked about how James Gandolfini died. I think it's worth sort of watching for you guys. The guy was very invested in his character. He gained weight because of it, but that led to, you know, he became obese. He had heart disease. He had a cocaine addiction. He was, you know, he had an alcohol addiction, and that ultimately led to his heart attack. People enjoyed his performance because he seemed to be so authentic and so invested, but I didn't realize to what extent this guy, cinematic quality acting to television.
Yeah.
It really changed the way actors portray roles on television.
Yeah, redefining what TV is and stuff like that. Until next week.
And like and subscribe.
And if you don't, what happens?
I may dismember you, but yeah.
One day we'll do one of these in person with my dad. And
that'll be good.
Last thing I wanted to say... For this show, for this podcast, I feel like I dressed the part. I tried to find my most, like, mobster-like shirt. Do you think that this looks like a Sopranos?
Yeah.
Like a mobster shirt?
Absolutely.
Good.
I think if we were in the early 2000s, the collar would be bigger. And no Converse. No offense.
Well, they can't see it.
Oh, sorry.
They don't know. I'm wearing loafers. They don't know.
You'd be wearing, like, Adidas or some kind of Nike.
Tennis shoe.
Yeah. We're both wearing Converse.
Yeah.
I did not dress the part. I think Tony would not appreciate. I think if I was like AJ's age and I came back to the Soprano house, I think Tony'd be like, who the hell is this girl?
That's the end of the episode.
Yes, it is.
Like and subscribe. And
if you have a non-alcoholic beer we should try, let us know in the comments.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.